Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices. I'm Juanita Hernandez. On the show tonight.
We see an iceberg coming, but we have a lot. This is not the Titanic.
Chicagoland is facing a public transit funding crisis. Hear how local leaders want to tackle the problem. An advocate for public parks prepares to step down. A look back on her work. A new initiative is driving foot traffic to neighborhood corridors ahead of the holidays.
Not giving out too many trade secrets. We only make it like 5 gallons at a time.
And we show you how popular Mexican sauce is made. And now to some of today's top stories. More debate over whether Chicago should remain a sanctuary city. Today, a group of local leaders held a news conference encouraging Chicago maintain its sanctuary city status. The status shields all immigrants in Chicago from federal agents, regardless of whether they are citizens, permanent residents, or asylum seekers.
Today is about showing the city of Chicago that there is a coalition, that there are communities across our city that believe that we have the moral obligation to support our migrant siblings. But more importantly, that the very fabric of the city of Chicago is a story of migration, and we should not forget that.
While Mayor Brandon Johnson says Chicago will remain a welcoming city for immigrants, those protections are facing intense scrutiny as officials struggle to care for the thousands of migrants who have arrived in the city since last year. Meanwhile, community members are rallying against the possibility of over 300 migrants being housed at a closed Catholic school on Chicago's northwest side. Activists are saying there was zero transparency between residents and local alderwoman Ruth Cruz, calling it a closed-door move. St. Bartholomew School closed earlier this year after merging with Pope Francis Academy. It's expected to house up to 350 migrants with an early January move-in date.
Really don't feel safe, with any new strangers walking around the neighborhood. My 3 older sisters moved out to the suburbs because of the crime.
We're also going to file an injunction in Roseland. It's going to happen in a couple of days. We're going to have a press conference right there in the courtroom, outside of the courthouse. And we'll definitely look into if we can file an injunction here, because what's going on is very unsafe.
According to Alderwoman Cruz, the decision was made between the city and the Archdiocese of Chicago. Preparations for the annual Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe are gearing up at the shrine in Des Plaines. The annual celebration attracts thousands of pilgrims from Chicago and around the globe. The event honors the story of the appearance of the Virgin Mary in Mexico in 1531. The 2-day celebration takes place on December 11th and 12th. Up next, how local leaders are hoping to tackle a crisis in public transit funding. Nick Bloomberg joins us right after this.
Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, is made possible in part by the support of these donors.
A fiscal cliff that threatens the Chicago region. That's what local leaders warn will happen without big changes to public transit funding. Lawmakers and advocates gathered this morning to throw their support behind a bold plan to make transit more equitable, sustainable, and efficient. WTTW News reporter Nick Bloomberg was there and joins us now with more. Now, Nick, advocates say that transit is facing a crisis. Tell me about that.
That's right, Joanna. CTA, Metra, and PACE are expected to have a $730 million budget deficit in 2026 if leaders don't take action, and it's estimated to get worse every year. Now, that's because ridership hasn't returned to pre-pandemic levels, and federal stimulus money is running out. Advocates add that's because transit has been underfunded for years anyway, too. So state lawmakers told the regional planning agency CMAP to think big. They asked them to come up with a plan to improve service, make buses and trains more accessible, and make sure all those different bus and train lines actually line up with one another. Now, State Representative Evedina Delgado was one of those lawmakers. She says even if you don't ride public transit, you rely on it. And if it faces huge service cuts or fare increases, people won't be able to get to their jobs. Traffic will get worse, so will pollution. Delgado also says it's a necessity for many lower and middle income folks and Black and brown Chicagoans.
Transit at its core is about equity. It's about providing service to everybody, regardless of where you live, who you are, how much money you make. So yeah, when I think of essential workers, I think of some of those folks who are, at the lowest income bracket, but they still have to be able to get around.
Delgado added that her dream is to one day have a transit system so good people see it as a first choice to get around.
And Nick, what are some of the recommendations in the plan?
Well, there are a ton of specific ideas in there about improving service, better coordination, some of the things we mentioned. Those are driven by metrics and data and community feedback. Now, leaders say overhauling the system will draw back riders, but changes like that take money. The report also calls for up to $1.5 billion in new public transit funding. Sounds like a lot of money, but advocates say the cost of inaction is way higher than the cost of action.
The long-standing underfunding of transit operations, coupled with the unprecedented challenges spurred by the pandemic, has brought us to a critical inflection point in transit's history. So today, we cannot shy away from the scale of the funding needs our transit system faces. It is significant, but the value that transit provides for the city and for our region is immeasurable.
In addition to more funding, the Plan CMAP came up with proposes some unprecedented changes to the way transit is run. Now, one option would give more power to the regional authority overseeing CTA, Metra, and PACE. The other and far bolder option would create a single regional transit agency, essentially combining the current hodgepodge of transit agencies into one.
Even if our transit agencies work together well now, there have been many years, decades even, in which the service boards were at cross purposes. In the system we now have, there are 47 board members across 4 boards appointed by 21 elected officials. That means that everyone and no one is responsible.
The plan now goes to state lawmakers, and Joanna, you can bet there will be a lot of debate on this issue in the spring legislative session that starts next month.
I can imagine. Well, thank you, Nick. And we're back with more right after this. You might remember a time when the Lucas Museum of Native Narrative Art was preparing to come to Chicago, only to eventually find a home in California. This was one of the many battles taken on by Friends of the Park, a local group that advocates for the protection of public green spaces. And the organization's longtime leader announces this week that she's stepping down. So joining us now to reflect on her time with the group is Juanita Irizarry, Executive Director of Friends of the Parks. Thank you for joining us. Now, I have to ask, going into this 8 years, did you expect to be part of such major battles?
Well, I did know as I was starting that the lawsuit against the Lucas Museum was already in progress. So that one I sure knew about. But following that, we also, struggled through some contentious years with the Obama Foundation around details of the Obama Presidential Center. And we currently have a lawsuit going against the Army Corps of Engineers. So I do say it's been a lot more back-to-back battles than maybe I expected.
And why step down away now?
Well, I honestly am a bit tired. I kind of compare it to 100-year storms, which are supposed to only happen once every 100 years. But we've had a couple of different 100-year storms back to back in terms of those battles that I just referenced. And so it's really intense, and it's really time to move on.
Seems like you've done a lot. Now, we have to mention the Lucas Museum and how Friends of the Park led the fight against it. At the time, you said you weren't against the museum, but rather the location. In the end, the museum ended up in Los Angeles. Are you still happy with that result?
Yes, I mean, Friends of the Parks has historically positioned itself as one of the key protectors of Chicago's lakefront. There really isn't another group that will always put itself up on the line to protect against any development along the lakefront that is not in the public benefit as opposed to private interests, and I'm really honored to have been part of that fight.
And before Friends of the Park, you were actually involved with politics for a bit, even running for 26th Ward Alderwoman at one time. Did that experience inform the work you did at Friends of the Parks?
Well, certainly. I've always been involved in fighting for good government, in advocacy, and in community organizing, whether it be through nonprofit work, through community leadership, or through running for office. So all of the relationships and skill sets that I built along the way certainly have been useful in my role at Friends of the Parks.
And you grew up in Humboldt Park, near what is now the 606 Trail, a project you've kept an eye on, and you have also fought for affordable housing in the area. Now, as you watch that neighborhood change, what's your response to the change?
Yeah. Well, for me, one of the things that became really clear when I became the executive director of Friends of the Parks was the way that the green space in my community had been so important to my life in Humboldt Park. I grew up just a few blocks from Humboldt Boulevard and 5 blocks from the park itself. And so when gentrification pushed us further west and we no longer were in an area of the community where we could just walk to the park, I really was able to feel the difference in my physical and mental health of not having that regular access to green space and park. So that's one of the ways in which my housing background and my green space interests have connected over the years. But certainly in Friends of the Parks' particular role, we've also looked at when there are major investments in parks, like at the Obama Presidential Center, what happens to community folks who may get priced out because of rising prices. And so for that reason, Friends of the Parks participated with the coalition to fight for a community benefits agreement so that there would be some affordable housing in the community to help residents stay to enjoy the investments in the park.
Of course. And what advice would you give to those still in those fights or looking to go up against powerful groups like the city of Chicago?
Well, it certainly takes a lot of tenacity and readiness to not back down. I mean, just today, Friends of the Parks put out a statement about our willingness to fight again if we have to, as we hear that the Bears are looking at that same parking lot where Lucas wanted to build as a possible site. And already today, you know, we've received insults on our Facebook page, right? The reality is that it's controversy and it takes a lot of willingness to receive the arrows and the darts, but to stand up for what you believe in.
And as one Latina to another Latina, I'm sure you've had to overcome many challenges, things that you probably still think about. What would you say is something that you're most proud of yourself for?
Wow. I just really see myself as someone who's really fortunate to have a lot of people who invested in me in youth programming and education early on in my life. And so I really see myself as someone well positioned to give back, and to whom much is given, much is required. And for me, I guess, I don't know if pride is the right word, but I just feel good about living a life that is consistent to service and giving back. So whether it's fighting against Rahm Emanuel or doing the work that we've done at Friends of the Parks to promote equitable investment across the parks, giving back from what has been given to me is really my guiding star.
And last question here, can we expect more fights in your future?
Well, I'm usually getting into good trouble pretty much on a regular basis. I do hope to take a mini sabbatical, a little bit of time off to rest, but I think it's hard for me to avoid getting involved in some, good public policy, good government battles down the road as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck with everything else. Our
Thanks
thanks to Juanita Irizarry. Up next, a new initiative driving foot traffic to neighborhood corridors for the holidays. For the first time time in Chicago's history, the Paseo Boricua Flags of Steel will be lit up for the holiday season. This is one of many holiday events this season meant to draw foot traffic to the city's commercial corridors. From Little Village to Humboldt Park, it's a new initiative meant to support small businesses during the holiday season. Joining us now with more on this are Jennifer Aguilar, Executive Director of the Little Village Chamber of Commerce, and Rob Foytik, Vice President of Neighborhood Strategy for Choose Chicago. I almost had it close. I had it right there. Well, thank you both for joining us. And Rob, tell me more about this initiative. What inspired it?
For sure. So it's an initiative coming out of Mayor Johnson's office, as well as the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events for the city. And we really wanted to highlight the amazing things happening in our neighborhoods. We know that there are so many cool holiday things downtown and in the central business district, but also that amazing things are happening across the city in neighborhoods like Little Village.
That's true. Now, Jennifer, your community is hosting one of those activities this weekend. What kind of foot traffic are you hoping this brings to the neighborhood?
We're expecting over 1,000 children.
That's a lot of children.
That's a lot of children.
That's a lot of children.
So we are expecting a big amount of people this weekend to see our tree and to see the lights in Little Village.
So you're expecting a nice little crowd?
Yes, we are.
What do you want people to feel during that time?
We want them to feel the joy that comes with seeing the lights, with seeing the Christmas decorations. Usually families have to go all the way downtown. So it being in our community will make it easier for them to access.
So it's nice bringing it to the community.
Yes.
And Rob, what do these activations consist of? First of the Paseo Boricua flags.
Sure. So this is the first time that those big metal flags right there are going to be lit up. And so on this Friday, we're going to have a little ceremony to kick that off. But really as a way to show that the community is part of the bigger narrative in the city. One of our missions at Choose Chicago is not just promoting the city, but also really enriching our neighborhoods with the power of travel.
What's that message you want to bring out, just lighting up those big flags? I mean, they're huge.
That's right. I mean, the community there often talks about plantando bandera there as the community and having a place that is theirs. And so this is very much a way to celebrate that community that's persisted.
We've seen how nice and packed it gets for the Puerto Rican parade. So I can't even imagine having the banderas light up, what it could bring people outside, who knows?
I know that I will be staying for some coquito afterwards.
A coquito, you can't go wrong with that. Now, Jennifer, how does business tend to fare in Little Village, especially now around the holidays, would you say?
During the holidays, some of our businesses see some slow times because of the weather, and a lot of our community sometimes looks for better prices, so they go to bigger box stores. So our businesses see a little bit of a slowdown, and that's why we're so happy to have this event to bring people out to the community and encourage people to shop local.
Of course, and talking about that, how does the Latino dollar tend to circulate in smaller neighborhoods?
Usually the Latino dollar circulates around 6 times within a neighborhood compared to 9 in the Asian community and unlimited amount of times in the white community. So it's very important for us to spend money in our own communities in order for our communities to grow and develop and for positive things to happen.
Yeah, and Rob, what response are you getting from the communities you're working with?
Well, everyone was super excited when we reached out and let them know about the funding opportunity and our desire to help promote it. And so communities across the city have figured out ways to enrich their existing events as well as find new ways to celebrate the upcoming holidays.
Can you talk to me more about the other neighborhoods? What other events are happening in other neighborhoods despite Little Village?
For sure. And so in South Shore, for instance, they'll have a canopy that they'll be lighting up for the holidays. In Humboldt Park, you mentioned the flags, but also in January we'll have a Three Kings celebration that'll be supported by the city. In Pilsen, right now, there's the Winter Window Walk, so passerbys can vote on their favorite with QR code.
And Jennifer, I want to go to, you talked about a little bit about the tree lighting, but what more can people expect this weekend?
If you stop by tomorrow, the celebrations start. Hot chocolate, conchas, churros, gifts for the children, and our beautiful tree. For the first time, we are decorating it in style. Usually it's just lights, Mexican style.
Mexican style.
Usually we just have lights. Now we're gonna have ornaments and ribbons. So we're taking it up a notch, and we're really excited.
Taking it up. Is there possibly mariachi, maybe?
Maybe, we'll see.
What was it like when you got the phone call from Rob? I'm assuming you guys worked together.
Yes.
That, hey, we want to do this project. What was that like?
Oh, we were so excited. We were so excited to be able to make the event bigger and to bring more people and the support we really appreciated.
And Rob, we talked about this a little bit, but what message does this give to smaller neighborhoods or neighborhoods who don't have access to go downtown or buy downtown? What would you say the message is there?
Well, I think the message for all Chicagoans really is that this is a city of neighborhoods. We have 77 community areas, and each of those has its own unique culture and traditions. And really get out and explore, meet your neighbors, learn how other folks do stuff, or reconnect with your own culture.
And is this something that everyone's working in, like all the neighborhoods are working together?
So we have 10 communities that we're working with through this initiative, but at the Choose Chicago website, you can just go to neighborhoodholidays.com. You can get a listing of events happening across the city as well as some shopping guides.
And they can find all the good stuff there.
All the good stuff and all the small businesses to support to keep that circulating dollar in the community.
And I have to ask, what's one local gift that you're buying that people should keep an eye on?
For me, in Little Village, we have beautiful clothing.
I want a poncho.
Yes.
I keep saying that I want a poncho.
Yes.
This year is a year I'm getting that poncho.
You can definitely find it at Artesanía Selena. She has the most beautiful ponchos and rebosos there.
How about you?
I'll be getting bags of freshly roasted coffee from Kusanya in Inglewood.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to do that.
Very tasty.
Well, thank you both for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Up next, we take you behind the scenes of a beloved Mexican sauce. Have you heard of chamoy? If you haven't, be prepared to want to try it. It's a traditional Mexican sauce that is sweet, sour, and tangy. You can put it on almost everything, including your favorite cocktails. We stopped by Big Mitch, a family-owned company that specializes in house-made micheladas and now making chamoy. If you've ever tried Mexican candy, well, chamoy can be considered the liquid version of what it tastes like. Chamoy sauce is bright red and packed with flavor. And once you taste it, it's hard to stop.
History of chamoy, right? Mexican condiment. Sweet, sour, derives from the pulp of fruit, usually stone fruit, peaches, nectarines, apricots, mangoes. Blended together with dehydrated chili, and then usually like lime for acidity, and then there's nothing bad about that.
So it could be a little spicy and sweet.
Yeah.
Big Mitch owner Javier Garcia makes chamoy with his own twist of ingredients. Without spilling the exact recipe, he shows us how they make it.
We use a proprietary blend of spices. So
special ingredients.
Special ingredients. And this chile is also found in our micheladas. It's also found in our dab salt. We also use agave.
This is important.
Yeah, it's gold, agave gold.
Okay.
And it's just, again, part of making sure that it is still very Mexican. It is still very culture forward.
And what's in here?
This is kind of our base. So this is a slurry that we make, and then we add to this to really fortify it.
The result is thick, tangy goodness.
To mix it to this consistency like this, it's at least like 45 minutes.
It's all made in-house at Big Mitch's headquarters in Willowbrook. They make an original lime flavor, strawberry, and mango.
It is a labor of love because it is thick, and there is no machinery that we could purchase right now that would make it easier for us. So it's a lot of elbow grease.
The flavorful sauce can be added to fruit, veggies, candy, and drinks. Garcia says his chamoy is made to stick firmly to the rim of your favorite cocktail. So, of course, we had to show you how to do it.
Grab your glass and go right straight in.
All right.
And then this is like that turn, right? You're gonna turn.
All right, guys, if you guys ever wondering how to do it, because I see some of y'all in your stories, a little messy.
Yeah, you want to clockwise it, right? Turn it clockwise.
Okay.
So you see, what we like to do is we'll hit it with the chamoy, and then we'll hit it with our dab salt. That just kind of doubles all the flavor, but it makes it look really pretty, right? It looks kind of like, michelada jewelry. A little bit of ice.
All right, some yellow, the fun part.
This is our classic OG michelada. Again, if you know Big Meats, this is kind of the one that started it all.
I love it.
There you go.
All right, then we add some of this.
Yep, a little brewski.
Then add your favorite beer or spirit to the drink. Give it a little stir, and it's ready. To make the rim even more flavorful, you can add some gummies covered in chamoy. Just kind of like they're dripping, you see? Look at that. Look how creative this is, guys.
Salud, guys.
Salud.
Cheers.
The family-run business has been operating for 6 years, offering its take on Mexican classics.
With the idea of Big Meech, and that's like family first, premium, culture forward.
I clearly had fun with this story, and I have to give a big shout out to Big Mitch because they gave us a big box of these Mexican delights. So if you're looking for a Christmas gift, I definitely recommend a nice big box of Mitch chamoys. And fun fact, although chamoy has its origins in Mexico, it also has Chinese roots. And that's our show for this Thursday night. Be sure to check out our website, WTTW.com/news, for the very latest from WTTW News. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 7 for the Weekend Review. Now, from all of us here at Chicago Tonight Latino Voices, I'm Joanna Hernandez. Stay healthy, stay safe. Buenas noches.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, wishing all a happy and healthy holiday season.